Okay guys, we're back on the block with the Arrma Fireteam. Check this out. Okay guys, so in this video, we're going to take the Arrma Fireteam and we're going to have a discussion about what we like and don't like about it. And we've got 10 questions that we're going to go over. 5 of them are for the series. Basically, the first 5 questions come from the series. The last 5 are viewer questions and we'll do our best to answer those. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right, so let's get started right off the bat. What do you think of this Fireteam just in general?
You know, just in general, I was really excited when you got it. I mean, it looks awesome. The guys in there, the stance of the truck, the tires really set it off.
They are a cool looking tire, that's for sure.
It's a very cool looking rig.
I agree. Now, before we get too deep into this, let's go over something real quickly. Now, this is not stock as far as the running gear is all stock. So it's got the 2050 motor, it's got the 150 amp Spectrum speed control. We did upgrade the servo because that blew up almost right away. So those are the changes there. It still has the factory radio in it. We did sync it to the DX3. So now the DX3 controls it, which is pretty good. Got that all working pretty well. I don't know whether we put it on the 5 yet, the DX5C, but I may have, I'm not sure. But we did put the EXB Mojave chassis on it. We also put the hardened aluminum center braces on it and the Creighton EXB shock towers, which stiffened up all the bendables.
That's pretty common with Arrma though, and it's kind of some of the points that we go over anyways with.
It is pretty much, the problem being is we bent the chassis, not a lot, but it was on its way to bending. And it came with the plastic chassis braces in the center, and this one sheared off up front, and this one broke in the bottom down here, and it allowed the chassis to bend a little bit. So we went ahead and upgraded to the more hardened components to just make it that much more durable. So that's what we've done so far to the car. We haven't changed anything else, just those bits just to make it what it is. So now it's got the hardened components from the EXB inside, so that should eliminate a lot of the bendable damage. So you ready to get on with the questions?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead and get this back together here. And let's do this. First off, question 1. How durable do you think this is?
You know, it wasn't bad. You know, like we just went over all the parts that you replaced, and like I commented, I thought that was pretty common of Arrma cars.
For the RTR class.
Right.
And this came as an RTR.
Right, the shock towers and the body braces, you know.
Yes.
Those are pretty common for us to change those. That's because we do a lot of jumping, we do a lot of bashing, and
well, I guess the way you'd have to put it is we don't bash lightly.
Correct.
We don't intentionally try to break these guys. We run them in situations that we would normally run them in.
we're having fun.
Yeah, you take a spot, pick any spot. We like nature, we like construction sites, we like the track that we built out at Rob's place. And we take these out and we really have a good time with them, and we run them the way we would just run them. We push them harder than a lot of people will, but that's how we'd run them anyway. So if they hold up to us, your average user shouldn't have too much trouble. And we want to cover the body too. This is a situation where it's got a really rigid body and they put some really good cage work in there. I mean, really good. There's a lot of cage work in there, and they did that so it would be really dense. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but the body itself, it has suffered some damage, and these are just thin panels that hook onto there. So changing the panels isn't a big deal. If you go to buy the whole body, however, that body right now on eBay is selling for about 200 plus.
Oof.
So if you're gonna get one, they're pretty expensive when it comes to that. So you're gonna wanna kind of take care of the one that you've got. I did change the hood pins on all of these to 10th scale. The lanyards are on there. We haven't had anything come off yet. The 8th scale ones are a little gnarly and they're hard to get through there, and we'll cover the hood pins in a little bit later. But let's get on to question number 2. How do you like the handling of this vehicle?
Yeah, I had a blast driving it. It handles the track very well. It handles small jumps very well. I had a lot of control over it, I felt.
I would tend to agree with that. It does handle really good. I mean, it mobs through really rough terrain. It does. It just sort of models its way through really rough stuff. It bounces over a lot of things. These tires are super forgiving.
These tires are awesome.
I really think the tires on this, these right here, guys, those are the saving grace for this car. I like the stretch chassis. I think it gives it a lot more stability. However, the battery assembly is more towards the front.
Right.
I think that needs to be moved to the back some to counter that, because the problem is when you get this in the air, and we're not talking, you know, a little 2-foot jump, when you hit a big jump and you've got some serious air to get down, this has a tendency to nose over. And if you watch any of the channels, you'll see the guys fighting to keep the nose up. And these are pretty good tires for correcting that, but when you hit it and you're already pinned, you don't have anything extra to give it, it's gonna go over, and you have like a split second to decide whether you're gonna hit the brakes or watch it cartwheel. And if you hesitate and you hit the brakes too late, it gets ugly fast.
Yeah.
It does. Many times we've scraped it in on the top because we had it hesitated. Now, the thing is you get used to a smaller wheelbase, right? And they'll roll faster. So a smaller wheelbase like a Notorious, even a Creighton, is shorter than this, and it'll rotate in the air faster. With this one, it's longer, so it takes longer for that to roll around, right? Because the farther you get from center, the slower that same weight turns. Okay, that's the hesitation in this. If you don't get to the brakes soon enough, it doesn't rotate fast enough to get back on its wheels, and it's special when you see it hit the ground. It's always really wild when you come to that. As far as the basic handling, it's a little squirrely. If you get on like just dirt with some rolly rocks and stuff in it, nothing severe, something that should be able to handle, it can be a trick, even with the gyro turned on, to keep it on a true line. It does try to fishtail a little bit, and it does try to get off track. So it's one of those things you wind up pedaling the throttle quite a bit. But that aside, it really does handle good. You can get it to do just about anything you want. It does have a handbrake for the back, and that's on, if you take a look at it, and now I do remember we put this on the DX5C, but this switch right here is the handbrake, and on the DX5C, that's this button right here. Okay, so if you're ripping along, you grab that button, make sure you're not on the trigger.
Right.
Okay, that's very important, because that disc, and let's show you what that is back here. That disc right here. This is hooked to a servo. There's the servo. And this locks that down. Okay, so it locks the back one, stopping the rear wheels. That hammers the center differential, because all this stops, but this is still moving. So it hammers this takes it all up in these gears and sends it to the front, anything. You can't be on the throttle or you'll destroy this gear. It's too much power for it. But if you're off the throttle and you pile on that, it'll lock the back wheels and you can get a bit of a slide going. It's kind of cool. It's more of a novelty. It's not something that I use on the regular, because if you throttle, brake, throttle, you can usually do about the same thing, not a big deal. But I think I'll probably wind up taking that out and putting it in one of my on-road cars, just because in the dirt, I don't think it's all that useful. So when you run it into your DX5C, this becomes intermittent. That's the way it's set up. But in this radio, you can make it a switch. Now it's on, now it's off. Now you wouldn't want to do that, because this servo is going to fight to keep it locked down. And you'll hear it, it'll go, and it'll hold it over there, and that'll burn that servo out if you leave it that way. So you want to have it on intermittent. Make sure that it lets off when you let off, and just use it. It'll lock it, let off, and it'll loosen up, and the servo will sit idle. It's like having your AVC turned up too high. It's constantly fighting to keep the car going straight, and it can really work the motor in that servo, and you can burn your servo down. That's not what happened to the original servo, because I had it turned off at the time. So that was just regular use on the servo. What we were doing, we were jumping and doing all that stuff. And when you're jumping, definitely have your AVC turned off, because it'll get weird in the air. We've covered that before, but with this one, you want to keep that AVC down when you're getting some air. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and it's really easy to set up in this once you understand the menu. And I really recommend looking at the manual when you get one of these. It's not that easy to understand, and you can sort of podunk your way through it and figure out what's going on. Definitely get on YouTube, search this for instruction. The guys on there are amazing at teaching you what does what, so that's always a good thing there. Question number 3, how versatile do you think this rig is?
I think it's pretty versatile. I mean, they got 3 kind of cars into one. The Mojave, the Creighton, and the Italian.
Yes, this is
kinda
a mix.
combined into
This is a
one.
mix of all three. Exactly.
And so in my eyes, it kind of does everything that those cars do too.
Well, the upside for versatility. Okay, so yes, it's a mix, but at the same time, what really gives it its versatility is its wheelbase and the size of the tires, because this will mob over all kinds of things up to that big. So we're looking at like about that size, and this will mob right over it. It's not a big deal. You can get into really serious stuff, and it's the tire size that gets you over it. That's why the X-Max is such a great car. It's got great big tires, and if you pin it, they'll grow. These don't grow that much. They do grow, but they don't grow much. The X-Max grows huge, right? So if you're spinning up in the air and you spin that up, it'll reach down as the tire grows and grab stuff and get you out of it. I mean, it's an amazing car when it comes to that. So tire size plays a huge role in versatility. I think this is a very versatile rig, but it does have its limitations. And part of it is this battery tray needs to be indexed to the rear. There is no wing on the back for air stability. There is none. So indexing this to the back, and the holes are there. You just unbolt it and slide it back and hook it back up. The only issue that you have with that is these have a finite reach to them. So when you move the battery tray back, it changes the length of the wiring to the battery box, or to the radio box, and the battery box. So in the Italian, we have the same setup in the Italian XL, but we moved it to the back, and it's kind of a tight fit for the batteries to connect.
Can you turn the battery box around maybe?
Nope,
Nope,
it has to go in that one direction, but it does work. This has a longer reach. It appears to go all the way. I mean, the box will go clear back to here, so it does bring it back quite a ways. That's the only thing I found is I had problems keeping the Italian plugged in. If you stab it on the nose, it would jar it loose, and then I remembered how to connect it to these straps to get it to work right, and then we didn't have that problem again. But that's part of a limitation to versatility. It doesn't jump all that good when it comes to really getting good air. It's really cool when you get off of structures like a gravel pile and things like that. You can control it pretty good, but if you hit an actual dedicated ramp of any kind, and we're not talking about manufactured ramps, like bicycle ramps, dirt. If you get that launch, this thing's gonna tend to nose over, and if you don't turn the AVC off, it's gonna scatter and get out of control, and you're gonna crash on it. So that's kind of my thought on that. Let's go over repairability. So this is question number 4. And have you worked on this yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
I watched you work on it, but I personally haven't done any work on it.
The upside to this is it's not overly complicated on any of this end stuff. Okay, so the bumpers come off super easy, front and rear, nothing to it. This actual concussion ring can go in upside down, but I have it in upside down right now, but see how this little blade sticks up? It has a tendency to block a hole there. But you can just flip it over. There's 4 screws and flip it over. So that's not a deal breaker. And when I did the video for building this, everyone saw me do that. So it's just one of those things, no one's perfect, but when it comes to repairability, this is just like the rest of the platforms. It really is. Once you get the bumpers out, it's the same. I mean, and we're talking about a mix of 3 cars, guys. So it does have Italian outdrives, and that's the wheel hub carriers out here. They're Italian, not Creighton, so they're narrower. It does have Creighton arms on it. Okay, it has Creighton shock towers and shocks on it. So it does have quite a bit in common with the Creighton, but it also has quite a bit in common with the Italian. Where it comes into mix with the Mojave is the length. So it's got the Mojave chassis, the Mojave drive shaft, and the Mojave top brace, and that's it. The rest is standard Arrma, 2050, 150 amp speed control, 6-channel receiver, servo, done. So that's it. As far as repairability goes, this one's pretty easy to work on. I don't have any issues with it. There's a lot of room to get to everything, so that's kind of my take on that.
What about the rear end with the brake?
You know, that's not an issue. I haven't had a problem with that at this point. When I rebuilt it, this doesn't actually attach to the chassis. It attaches to this down here. So this is right here by the gearbox, and it attaches to that front hinge pin mount. So that's where it connects. So when I did the chassis swap, that wasn't even an issue. It's just in there or it's not. If you want to take that out, you'll need that new bracket to put in to eliminate it. So it's something you'll have to buy a part to replace because it's actually attached to the differential down there. As far as that goes, let's go into overall value. Now this was fairly expensive. I think it was well over $750 when I picked it up. And it was cool. I heard about it the day it hit the internet. I heard about this thing and I wanted to get it in here and check it out. So I ordered one. It came in as soon as it was available to the public, and I went in and paid for it and brought it home, and we took a look at it. And what really struck me about that is this body over here is 1 full pound heavier than a Creighton body. A full pound, and it sits up here. And the problem with that is that's a lot of top weight. Okay, so top weight's generally detrimental to cornering. That does handle good, but you can see it lean. And it does have the sway bars and stuff on it, but you can see it lean back and forth. And that, it really is a bit of an issue. I didn't break any arms. Everything was good on that end of it. And it is plenty powerful. It's a blast to drive as far as power plant goes. We did wind up changing out the EXB components to make it tougher because the plastic, it's an RTR, stamped everything, right? And it's not one of those things that I really enjoyed running so much with the plastic stuff because you could see it flex and move. And it seems to me their answer for that, as far as trying to keep things in check, is this. And the problem is this body right here has several mounting points. Okay, so it's got the one here. This mounts into this, which is the front bumper, so it hooks in right here. This one right here saddles directly over the shock tower. This hole right here goes straight over this point. Okay, that's cool for the front. Then there's 4 points here that go over these pins that stick up all the way around. That helps with alignment. In the back, we've got the same thing. We've got this one here that attaches to this shock tower. We've got 2 holes that are for these, and this one back here locks into that. Okay, it's a pretty rigid body, but it's plastic. It does flex. So it's not exactly a solid fix for it because the body does flex. So here's the thing. Once you have an issue, and what I'm getting at is when you bend the chassis slightly or bend the shock tower, and the shock tower is inside the chassis on this. Once you bend that shock tower, that part of the brace for the body doesn't fit, doesn't align. If you bend the chassis a little bit, it changes the direction or the orientation of all these parts and the body doesn't want to go on. Also, this is a 2-part body as far as that goes. And I know it's more parts, but what I mean in each location. So you've got a skin that goes over a skeleton. Okay, so the skeleton inside of there and the skin don't always stay perfectly together.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a gap between those right there. Now the thing is, the tolerance between the hole and the T-bar, and that's this piece back here, is so close that you have to put all your weight on it to put a pin in. Our answer to that was pretty simple. We just shaved these down a little bit, done deal. It went right easy. We raised these up 1 hole, so it didn't push down into these quite so hard. And the body goes on it just easy peasy now, but it didn't initially. So overall value with what we had to do to it, we haven't changed the arms yet, but I see that probably coming for this car. Since it's a Creighton version, we'll probably do the RPM upgrade, put the version 4 sway bar in the back and buy the version 4 shock pins and switch it over to make it like stupid durable. That should really be good. So as far as the value goes, if I had the option and this car got smashed by a bus, would I buy another one? I'd really have to think that over. Partially because the body adds so much weight. It doesn't handle that much better than anything else. It doesn't jump as well, but for what it is, if you dig that style of body and that turns you on, this is a great car. It really is. If you run it for what it's designed for, which is crawling around in the weeds and looking all stealthy and stuff, it's really cool for that. But if you're looking for an ultimate basher, I don't think this is it.
Well, there's other ones out there for that.
There is. This one's got more of a niche to it. I've got several friends in the military and they just absolutely love the look of this thing. And if that's your game, get it.
Yep.
Because it's still, you can buy all the parts for it because it's a conglomeration of 3 different vehicles and the parts for them are prevalent. You can get them anywhere, right? Would you agree?
I would agree.
Okay, so those are our regular questions. Let's get on to our viewer questions and we'll have a look at that and see what we can come up with. So question 1 for the Fireteam 6S, are the A arms the same as the Creighton? And these are the same arms that are on the Creighton version 5. The outdrive carriers that actually attach to the wheel hub, those are Italian, but the arms themselves, those are Creighton arms. So yes, they are Creighton arms. Question number 2, I wish my body clip slid in that easily. How'd you manage that? Well, we just talked about that. What we had to do was these T's right here are a full round T, and they're too close to tolerance to get into this pinhole right here. So we took a multi-tool and we just shaved these down maybe a 1/16 of an inch to give us just a little more clearance, and raised them up one hole, and they plug in like nobody's business. It made everything that much easier.
Another thing that you also did was you went to 10th scale clips.
I did. The 10th scale clips are a little smaller. They are on tethers, so they stay. We even put a smaller version of the big front one on there because that is a little bit bigger around. And it was a real simple changeover to do, and that also made it a lot easier to clip down. Okay, question number 3. Are the shock towers the same as the Mojave? Unfortunately, guys, no, they're not. If you want to take and look at what the shock towers truly are, the front one has a flat area right here, and it's flat across, and that's so it can saddle into the body. So if you're going to replace it, you really need to get a Fireteam front one. However, for the upgrade, these are the Creighton EXP shock towers, and this one's a little bit mooned here, right here, but it does connect properly, so it still does the job. So these are Creighton EXP shock towers. Question number 4. AJ, do you think adding the EXP chassis braces will stop it from bending the RTR chassis? You know, bracing can't hurt. I don't know that it would solve your problem completely, but it would probably add longevity. I think it would definitely add some rigidity to things. Keep in mind though, these do a good job of stopping rotation. What I mean is this way. And when you take a frontal impact right on the shock tower, and it happens, it has a tendency to push this bar backwards and tip the back. Okay, that's just how it works. It's kind of this situation. And when that happens, it usually bends back here. The stiffer these are, the less that occurs. So I think it would help some. I don't think it would end your problems, but I think it would definitely be a good short-term fix until you could get an EXP chassis to go with it. So yes, to some extent, I think that would help. All right, question number 5. How does the Fireteam compare to the other RCs from Arrma? That's a tough question because there are so many great cars from that company. You can go down to the 3S versions like the 3S Typhon. It's an amazing car, plastic chassis, 10th scale, small, fast, durable. I mean, still we haven't had to change any parts in it. And it's an amazing car. This is heavier. I mean, it's a lot heavier with the body and stuff on it, but it's a totally different scene. As far as if you're into the Mojave style vehicle, this doesn't compare because it's not a desert racer. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't handle anything like it. However, this is a lot like Italian XL with the larger tires on it. It's basically the same footprint, and an XL, for those of you that don't know what that is, if you take an RTR Italian, you put the Mojave chassis on it, the Mojave top bar, and you put the Mojave drive lines in it for the center, you can stretch that car out and get it 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches extra distance out of your wheelbase, which makes them a lot more stable. And this is already built that way, which makes it a pretty stable car. Comparing it to the Creighton, I think the Creighton's a lot more nimble, it's a lot more versatile, it can go a lot more places, and it stunts better because it's a shorter wheelbase. It's not notorious short where it's just always on its ass end. You can control it. This one's a lot more stable. If you want to get full pin on it, this one doesn't raise up as bad. You can get wheelies out of it, but you kind of have to try or have good traction to pull that off. So I don't know, as far as that, how does it compare? If you're into the style, this is right up in there. If the style isn't your thing, I think you could get more performance and more of what you're looking for with a different style car. But if you're looking for an XL style vehicle, this one's already there. Change the body.
Yep.
Put something else on it. So there you go, guys. That's our discussion on the vehicle. Rob didn't have a whole lot to say on this one, but I run this one a lot more than he has. So we're going to take a short break here and we're going to give our ratings on the car, and we'll be right back. Check this out. Okay, welcome back. So now we're going to go over what each of us rated them in each category, and we do know the total, but we don't know the points awarded for each category. So this will be quite entertaining. So Rob, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, question number 1 was durability. What'd you rate this for durability?
I threw down an 8 for durability.
Is there any reason you went with 8?
Just we didn't have that much breakage out of the box. Other than that servo,
Yeah.
which I think was just kind of freakish. Really know why.
And that certainly could have been manufacturer error. It could have been any number of things. It wasn't from any specific impact or anything like that. I agree, that could have been just manufacturer error as far as that goes, but at the same time, that does weigh in on durability. I mean, because you get it out of the box and all of a sudden it doesn't work, that's gonna really freak a few people out. So you gave it 8. For durability, I gave it 8 as well. So we're at 8 on that one. Question number 2, handling. What do you think of the handling?
I nicked it a little bit there. I gave it a 7 on handling.
Really?
Yeah. I do like the way that it runs through the field and how it handles small terrain, but you get into jumping and stuff like that, and it's not a jumper. I mean, it's
No, not at all. Not really. I mean, it could be modified to be one, but out of the box, it really isn't.
right. But was it built for that?
I don't think it was.
Me
I think
neither.
it's designed to stay pretty close to the ground,
Yeah.
really, if that's what we're aiming for. I know a lot of guys are really sending these things, and that's cool. But I really don't think that's something that's supposed to be in this car's wheelhouse. As far as handling goes, I gave it 8.
Oh.
I thought 8 was a pretty fair score for it because in the right conditions, it handled really good. In other conditions, it didn't do so well. Okay, question number 3, versatility. How versatile do you think this is?
I gave it a 7 on versatility as well.
7?
Mainly just due to the fact that it does have its limited capabilities as far as jumping and stuff like that. It will crawl over stuff. Like we talked about the tires being able to go over little logs and
Yeah, it
stuff.
does get over things pretty well. I found it to be a little more versatile than that myself. I gave it 8. I think it handled things admirably for what it is. You get it in really rough, hostile terrain for a car this size, and it really did handle it nicely. It did. At high speed, it is a little top heavy, and it does meander a little unless you have the gyro cranked all the way up, it does seem to meander under power. And it's not that it's not controllable, it just spins all 4 and it starts to drift and it can get out of pocket. And that's really one of the things that plays a role in versatility. What can you do with it and have it be stable and controllable? And that's really kind of where I was at with that one. So, okay, very good. How about repairability? And we've done a video on this.
yeah, and I'm sitting at an 8 on that one.
Well, and that makes sense, considering this is actually a car you haven't wrenched on personally. So that makes sense because it's the same platform. It's the same as the other Arrma cars. And since it's a mixture of all 3, it really is the same as the other Arrma cars, which is kind of neat when you think about it. Even the Italian outdrives are off the Typhon. They're the same. So actually, if you want to look at it that way, there's parts from all of them on it. So it is very much the same to work on, which makes it pretty easy to repair. You can't really repair the body as far as making it do what they wanted it to do, getting rid of the weight. The only thing you could do is put a different body style on it, then it's not one of these.
Right.
So for that reason, I gave it 9 for repairability.
Nice.
Easy to work on, you can get the parts, but at the same time, look at it. I mean, it just is what it is. And then finally, overall value. What do you think? This thing was right around $750 out of the box. What do you think of the price?
I threw a 7 at it for the price. The reason why that is because it is a mix of 3 other cars.
Yes.
And I think, depending on what you want to do, I believe that the versatility of the other cars is a little more than this one.
That
But that's
makes
my
sense.
personal opinion.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I really think it was clever for Arrma to use existing components and marry them up in a new way. One, they don't have to pay for the R&D for all new components, so they don't have to design new differentials. They didn't have to design new arms, new shocks, new shock towers, new outdrives. It was all salvaged out of other vehicles and combined in a new way. I thought that was exceptionally clever because, like I say, the R&D cost is down. It's just a matter of marrying those parts up in a new way and combining a few new parts to get them to do what they want those parts to do. And this really was kind of the only way to get that body to look the way it does. I'm not so much a fan of the little G.I. Joes they have in there, but at the same time, they do kind of fill the car in and make it look the way it should. But for me, I give this a value of 7. So for Rob, his score comes out to 37 out of 50. Okay, for me, I came out with 40 out of 50, which is 10 points down from a perfect score, giving us a combined score of 38.5 for the Arrma Fireteam. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and don't forget that notification bell to stay informed of upcoming videos like this one. You know, we really enjoy doing this kind of thing. These things are so neat to get your hands on, and we feel really fortunate to get to play with these high-end toys. These are really cool. If you guys have one of these things and you've done some modifications, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. Hey guys, for Rob, this is AJ with AJ Jam Studios saying, keep bashing, guys.